Jugadi, did you hear that a person lost his life and many were hospitalized after a London to Singapore flight, SG-321, went through severe turbulence a few days back?
But Gramps, do you know why turbulence happens?
If I knew, why would I be discussing this with you then?
Didn't Newton tell you about it?
What does Newton have to do with it? He lived 4 centuries ago.
Well, Gramps, by looking at you, I believe you and he only have a difference of 4 years. Anyways, this has a lot to do with Newton and a well-known principle of physics. We daily see it but tend to miss the essence.
You know, at your age I was very fond of puzzles, but now I like to keep things straight.
Okay, so tell me, if you have kept multiple items on a table, what would happen if you slowly move the table up or down, back or forth, left or right?
Isn't it obvious that things would move with it?
Okay, but what if the movement is sudden then?
Things will fall off it, similar to the things kept on a car's seat when we suddenly apply brakes. But how is this linked to a plane, as the plane is continuously flying? Even the pilot doesn't apply brakes mid-air. So how is it relevant to that?
So, suppose you are running and there is a pool in between. Would you be able to cross the pool through its water at the same speed?
To cross it, I would either have to walk in it or swim. Water is much denser than air, so my speed would be slower. But again, are you suggesting God has put a flying swimming pool in the air? Does the airplane takes a dip in it before going ahead?
Smart Gramps, you already know the answer. You just need to put it together.
Let's just assume I am paying you for that. Now you do it for me.
So, when a plane encounters anything that is of different density, you will see the speed decrease suddenly as the plane is already flying at high altitude and speed.
But what is the higher density thing over there? Wouldn't that fall down automatically if it is denser than air?
Yes, but not always. Clouds, for example, are relatively denser, and that is why you would always see some turbulence when the plane is moving through them. Also, different streams of hot and cold air can be there with different densities and sometimes moving in different directions as well, suddenly pushing the plane in any direction. The clouds always have different shapes and different arrangements. Since the plane moves in a straight line, many times one part of it may be going through the air or clouds of different density. So it is very common to see some vibration in planes when they are passing through them.
So these are the reasons for the air turbulence we discussed?
For that incident, these were not the reasons, but I pointed them out as the most common ones which we can also visually see.
I am hoping you will be able to tell the other ones before the year changes.
Of course, Gramps. So in the case of this flight, the plane had already flown for 10 hours out of a 12-hour flight. A few people might have already been very complacent. This region was experiencing thunderstorms. These must have led to strong vertical air currents, resulting in the plane suddenly rising and then falling. The total difference was about 3,000 feet in a matter of a few seconds.
You are saying the total difference between up and down was equal to about a 300-floor building in a very short time?
Yes, it seems you are still good with math and analogy.
You would be surprised that I am also good with common sense. If the plane fell, then why didn't people experience weightlessness like zero gravity? Many who were hospitalized seem to have bumped their heads on overhead bins. How is that even possible, as that means the plane went down even faster than the rate of free fall?
Gramps, just after this, Singapore Airlines announced that as an enhanced safety measure, they will not serve meals and beverages when the seatbelt signs are on for the safety of the passengers and crew. It seems that the captain had already warned the passengers of the turbulent weather ahead. And the reason that out of 220 passengers and crew only a few got hurt and needed hospitalization was that they were not wearing seatbelts. When journalists asked passengers in Bangkok, most of the passengers replied they were wearing seatbelts. So why journalists could not find passengers to interview who were not wearing seatbelts?
Got it, because those were already in hospital, but you still didn't answer my question.
Gramps, it is vital to point out the forces at play. As I mentioned earlier, there were vertical currents, which seem to be confirmed by Singapore Airlines' recent announcement. Since there are no further details on the exact sequence of events, here is an explanation. The vertical air current moved the plane to a higher altitude, All passengers, even without seat belts, would remain seated, similar to things kept on a table if the table is suddenly lifted vertically. But when the opposite happens, there are two possibilities. These are free falling because of only gravity, or someone may be pushing the plane with additional force. If something pushes down the plane, it won't be free fall for the plane and it will be like suddenly moving the table.
Seems free and free fall was not randomly placed. Go on.
Bang on. Yes, it is no longer a free fall for the plane, and a person without a fastened seat belt will remain in their place, but the plane will descend from its position, and consequently, the head of the person will bang against the plane's luggage compartment. From the inside of the plane, it will appear that the person moved up from his position and hit the overhead compartment, but the reality is opposite. The plane actually moved down.
So this is what caused the injuries to those passengers, resulting in the death of one of them.
The bumps in a plane may be the same as a car going over potholes. But experiencing this while flying very high dramatically increases the fear of turbulence for flight passengers. In the case of the passenger who lost his life, this fear seems to have caused him a heart attack.
What about the plane? Do they also experience any damage?
No, planes are designed to withstand much harsher conditions. Even Elon Musk, in one of his tweets, said, "People should never fear turbulence." Commercial airliner wings can handle insane amounts of bending.
So you can say it is seldom the case that a plane gets damaged during turbulence.
Yes.
And you are also saying it's just that simple with seat belts. Just set it and forget it during the whole flight?
Oh yes. Gramps, you must already know better than me that many things are very simple in life. It is we who complicate them.
Yes, I have seen plenty in my whole life. The plane flies at a speed of about 10 to 15 kilometers per minute. It is impossible to see what is that far ahead, even in the clearest weather. So how does the pilot get to know there is turbulence ahead?
When pilots continuously monitor weather radar, it tells them what's ahead. When they see turbulence, they turn on the seat belt sign in advance.
Well, then I don't have to wear the seat belt all the time, as the pilot will turn on the seat belt sign anyway. Unless the radar does not show what's ahead correctly, which can never be the case.
Gramps, assumptions make conclusions wrong.
I am assuming now you will explain it. Isn't it correct?
This one was right, but not the previous one. In the case of clear air turbulence, CAT, it can come without warning from the weather radar.
So, you're saying that sometimes turbulence isn't really turbulence, but rather love, which is there but just invisible?
Yes, and I am also saying that if you love your head and are not planning to wear a helmet throughout the entire flight, you should keep your seatbelt buckled up.
Oh, sarcasm. So tell me, if turbulence can send people flying high, how would the seatbelt save me from a flying serving cart? Won't that be lethal if it hits me or anyone else?
Yes, that's why the crew generally locks the serving carts during turbulence.
Well, I remember someone saying that turbulence doesn't always come with a warning.
Seems you are giving me the dividend of my sarcasm.
What were you thinking? Don't forget to answer the question.
The simple solution is to keep the service time minimal and keep the trolleys locked even in the aisle.
You know you are simply saying to reduce the flight's customer satisfaction. Who would fly on a flight that says they are not serving right now?
By reducing the service time, I meant they need to speed up the service. This concept is not new, it was done by McDonald's decades ago. You will see the flight crew serving from the usual jars. Those are not specially designed for quick service. It is completely manual. Some part of trolleys can be modified to act as dispensers, so a flight attendant can fill 2 or 3 glasses in one go rather than holding one glass and pouring a hot beverage from a jar with the other hand and worrying about burning themselves. Even the food packaging and disposal are thoughtless. There is so much scope for improvement. And Gramps, would you be happy if you are being served faster, or would it be a dissatisfaction for you?
Of course not. I would like to keep the weight minimal, but how do you secure the trolleys?
Did you know that airlines get bare planes from the makers and the interior such as chair arrangements and fixation is done by the airlines themselves? Every aisle has fluorescent strips. Airlines can have guiding rails or even a single rail placed in the aisle. The trolleys can be designed to move linearly on rails and kept locked when needed on the rails itself. I am sure this should be sufficient to alleviate your fear of breaking service trolley by headbutting.
Oh yeah.
In order to reduce the feel of turbulence, a few premium seats can have gimbal type 3-axis motion control motors which will reduce the sudden impact of turbulence, similar to how it works for cameras by reducing shocks.
Now you have started talking in gibberish, and this stuff is going above my head. Save it for some other day.
Let's close it for now. Dadu didn't know, but if you know why passengers getting injured during turbulence is related to which principle from Newton, let us know in the comments.